Hi, Denise Matteau here for the Visions of Mercy channel. I want to direct your attention to another channel, John S. Captain. There's a link in the description. John Captain is a man who had the unfortunate experience of losing a woman he loved to murder. Her name was Tiffany Jenks. John Captain was living completely in the secular world. He's a stock trader. The financial world is his world. By his own account, he had no time for spiritual, occult, conspiracies, even psychology. Everything was part of his world, was fairly cut and dried material world. And he fell in love with this woman, Tiffany Jenks. Tiffany Jenks was an employee of a power company. Her job involved working with dams. He mentions the Bonneville Dam out on the West Coast. This all happened up in Oregon. And Tiffany Jenks had some responsibilities for the control and the manipulation of the power coming through these dams. Part of Tiffany's job, however, was highly mysterious, and she did it faithfully and obediently. Part of her job involved receiving pieces of paper with certain numbers written on them and handing them to people who would arrive for the purpose of picking up that piece of paper. She was assigned to do this without speaking to the person, but simply to hand the paper and then go back to her duties. So she did it. It's not clear from John Captain's accounts how long she did this, but she was doing this as a routine part of her job. It didn't make any sense to her, but it didn't matter. It didn't cost her anything. It didn't compromise her in any way, or so she thought. There are various things in her life, as there are in all of our lives. She had a drinking problem, but she had, a good corporate job. And good corporate jobs tend to look after their employees if they have problems. She had a therapist. Now, it's also not clear from John Captain's account. He has so many videos, I have to admit I haven't listened to all of them, but I so far have not heard him explain how long she went to this particular therapist. I'm not going to name because my channels are under attack, and I'm learning the skills of proper journalism by surviving these assaults, because there is an organized complaint campaign going on. So she goes to see this therapist, and she sees him over a long period of time. She's having a drinking problem. Common situation. You've got a good job. Your alcohol has maybe caused your boss to say, "Hon, if you don't do something, you're going to lose your job." So, okay, I'm going to this guy. Here he is. And who knows? Maybe this therapist was assigned to her. That's another thing I'd like to know. How did she get placed with this particular therapist? Because she mistrusted this therapist enough to start recording those sessions and to hand those recordings to the man she loved. And what's interesting is that this so-called therapist, I'm using air quotes around his name, I'm not naming him, but around his title, the so-called therapist began to trash talk her relationship, almost demonize. And it's clear, not only from John Captain's self-presentation, that he was a healthy and desirable lover, possible life mate, It's clear from her descriptions and her discussions in those therapy sessions that this was a healthy relationship. Any legitimate therapist would have been extremely supportive of her deepening relationship with this man. What the therapist could keep an eye on was, is this another casual encounter? Use them and lose them kind of thing? Women with drinking problems do that. When a woman with a drinking problem is seeing a therapist, usually, if it's a legitimate therapist, they're trying to help her separate herself from use them and lose them type of relationships. They're trying to help her form stable, strong, healthy relationships. They don't trash talk a decent man. Now, what was particularly interesting about John as captain was not just that he was a nice guy and a well-employed guy. He was employed in the financial markets. He's a trader. Trader. He understands things like how insider trading is carried out. And he is an honest man. If somebody said to him, "Isn't it funny what I have to do today? I have to hand this piece of paper to this jerk who comes in. It's so weird, but hey, it's a good paycheck, la la la." He's going to go, "Well, what was on the paper? What are you talking about?" He's going to notice there's a danger that this man in the financial trades is not only going to notice, but his awareness is going to matter, okay? If someone like me says, "Hey, that's insider trading," because I know, because man, I just saw Law and Order on TV, and that's what they were doing, I'm going to call the FBI, or in this case, I guess it would be the Treasury Department. "Hey, you know, my neighbor down there, she works for the power company, and I know she's involved in insider trading." They're going to laugh. They're not even going to ask who it is and what's going on. They're just going to have themselves a good laugh around the water cooler. But somebody in the financial trades, somebody who probably has to have occasional conversations with regulators, accountants, if he says, "This is what's going on at that power company," they're going to be right on it. Now, God bless John as captain. He has a relationship with a woman which was nothing more to him than a personal relationship. Yes, he loved her deeply. He wanted her to get on her feet. He struggled with the fact that he was having a relationship, a strong love affair, with a woman who had a drinking problem. He grieved over his inability to solve her problems. All of this is clear in their conversations in the recordings. And then suddenly, one day, somebody shoots her in the head. He's been loving her for a little over a year. He goes to the police with what he knows. The police treat it as a random act of violence. And they also treat the perps of this supposedly random act of violence as if they had done nothing more than steal hubcaps. They treated them like a bunch of neighborhood pranksters. And they refused to pay any attention to all of the hard evidence, the recordings, all of the evidence that John as captain had, not only the recordings that Tiffany Jenks made, but security video recordings and proof that these were not casual drive-by killers who just walked up to her at a bar, invited her out, and shot her in the head. These people had been stalking her. They showed up in connection with other people in their lives. They showed up on video cameras at places in the weeks before she died. And he has the recordings of her growing fear that she is going to be killed. And in those recordings, you can clearly hear this therapist trash-talking her relationship with the one man who could have protected her had he known what was going on. And also had he sufficient power. It's possible that the only thing that would have happened had he known what was going on was they would have shot him as well. But he was just an average Joe. And he never even heard of the things he talks about now. He talks about the Illuminati. He talks about the conspiracies. He talks about the evil. He talks about I mean, when you get that evil to where you're planning murders, you are in touch with the spiritual realm. There's no escaping it. So you can look at Tiffany Jenks' murder as an Illuminati conspiracy. You can look at the occult aspects of it. There were occult things going on. She was not in a sober mind much of the time. And her therapist, when you listen to those sessions, he was not encouraging sobriety. He was pushing her deeper into the irrational world, which would guarantee that her murder would not be properly investigated. Police are trained in our society today with clear limits to what they will take seriously. And even those who understand it and try to get around it so that they can investigate these crimes, they're up against the system. It's not set up for it. And it's not set up for it because the system relies on the elite, the people who make money off trading stuff like power, water supplies. That level of elite uses the Illuminati type of theology and mysticism and occult practice to prevent and derail any kind of investigation that will make them suffer the consequences of their action. The Tiffany Jenks killing, in my opinion, was a simple, financial, organized crime killing of somebody who was being used and exploited, who was in danger of getting her eyes opened and going to the law. If John Captain explained to her what she was doing, she would have immediately been protected by federal authorities. She would have immediately been thrown into witness protection, and we'd be reading headlines. But now, all we have is an aggrieved lover trying to understand what was done to the woman he loved and having his worldview turned topsy-turvy. Visit John Captain's channel. Listen to those recordings. Offer him your prayers and support. Denise Matteau, Visions of Mercy, over and out.